In this episode, I'm going to share 3 ways or techniques to get out of having to share personal information in a conversation. Today, I'm going to share 3 techniques with you, 3 ways to get out of having to share information, especially personal information, with other people. So sometimes you may be in a scenario where you're at a networking event, or let's say you are a businessman or a scientist or an engineer, and you're traveling overseas and you're collaborating with other scientists and engineers in that host country. And there's some information that you need to keep secret. You need to safeguard the information, and yet they will still ask you for it. So you don't want to come across as rude ever, because that could kill a relationship. And if you need this relationship for business or professional reasons, you definitely don't want to put anything out there that's going to ruin it. So instead, I'm going to teach you how to get out of having to answer questions that are a little too intrusive, a little too personal, people asking for your private information, and maybe just a little too rude. So are you ready? All right, number 1, I want you to answer their question with a question. So I know this is odd coming from me, because I teach this as an indicator of possible deception. When I ask someone a question and you answer my question with a question, that tells me you have something to hide. You're not comfortable answering my question. If I know for certain you understood my question, it was clear, it was concise, and you repeat the question, it just tells me that you're buying a few seconds of time to think of what to say. So now the answer I have to go after is, why are you needing those extra seconds or minutes to think of what to say? Usually it's because you're lying to me or you're lying by omission. But aside from that, we're not on that table today. Today, we're going to flip the tables. We're going to turn them, because you're going to be on the side of somebody asking a question, such as how much you make for your yearly salary, maybe the exact specification of a project that you're working on, and you are not comfortable sharing that information. Right? Sometimes you can't share the information. It's proprietary, it is safeguarded, it's classified, whatever it is. So in that instance, if you really want to protect your information and get off that topic fast, answer their question with a question and take them on to another topic. You know, when I train elicitation, and if you saw my video on demystifying elicitation, yes, elicitation is about using provocative statements to get information, but it's also about that fine art of controlling a conversation, discussing the topics you want to discuss, not what everybody else wants to discuss. So if you don't want to discuss your salary, then you take control, get in the driver's seat, and steer that conversation to another topic. So number 1, answer their question with a question, and not in a rude way. Number 2, I like to say, take the iceberg approach. So if somebody asks you a question and you think, oh, if I answer it with a question, it's going to seem a little obvious that I'm trying to dodge answering it. So let me give as little as I can. Be very, very vague. So if somebody asks me, and when I used to work for the government, when they asked me what I do for work, I would say, oh, I work for the government. Now it's up to you to pry. And if you pry and make me uncomfortable, that's your fault. And you could ruin the relationship. So you see how I took control there? So if somebody asks you a question, just give them the tip of the iceberg, just a little bit of information that's vague enough that satisfies as an answer, but it doesn't disclose anything too pertinent, specific, or personal. Number 3, and this is one I love, you have to have an exit strategy. Right? So if you have answered their question with a question, you have taken the iceberg approach and gave them just trickling in little bits of information, at some point you need an exit strategy to get out of the conversation with them. So that may be that you all of a sudden looked at the time and you have a meeting. All of a sudden you looked at the time and said, oh, I'm running late to something. You look across the room and you see somebody you know, and you say, you know what? I have to go talk to that person. Or you simply just don't have any more time to discuss anything with them. And that's fine. You're in control of how long you engage in a conversation with someone. So you may just say, listen, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Have a wonderful day. I'll probably see you at the event this evening. Take care. And leave. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you always end on a high note, on a pleasant note, such as, have a great day. I enjoyed meeting you. I enjoyed speaking with you. Maybe I'll catch up with you later. That's a positive note. So when you end on a positive note, that person is still going to be left feeling positive about your interaction. So answer the question with a question. Number two is use the iceberg approach. Be very vague in the information that you're going to give them and share with them. And number three, have that exit strategy already in your head. Listen, this was critical, these three steps for me when years ago I got hired by the government, I will say, and I was a role player and I got hired to bump their students going through some training where they had to live in cover. And I was there to see if I could break into their cover and actually bump them, get to know them, and get them to tell me their real name and what they really did. So I would usually bump them in a restaurant or a bar in various cities around the US. And I had to take my time though. If I rushed it, it would be really weird. And so I would take a good half hour to become a blip on their radar, I say. I would get them to notice me in the environment. Once I'm in the environment, they keep noticing me. I'm doing what everybody else is doing in the environment. So let's say I'm at a restaurant or bar, I'm ordering something to drink, something to eat. I'm having idle chatter with my neighbors, with the bartender, with the hostess, whatever. Right? So I'm acting appropriately for that environment. So now, because you've seen me there, I become a familiar. And at one point, I will get your eye contact. And when I get your eye contact, now I've become what I call the blip on your radar. I am on your radar now. So then I bring in the atmosphere around me to strike up a conversation with elicitation using a provocative statement. Maybe I mention what's on TV or the weather or how crowded it is in this place, something, or maybe comment on what they've ordered to drink or eat. And so that gets the ball rolling because you can't just jump into a conversation. You have to win trust first. That is step number one. If you win somebody's trust and you get them comfortable, you can get anything you want from them. Trust me on that. But you have to be patient and you have to earn their trust. So, of course, I can't tell them once we get into who I am, who they are, what they do, what their name is. I can't just start immediately sharing a lot of information because that's odd. Why would I do that to a stranger? I wouldn't. So I give them the tip of the iceberg. Now, if they ask me a question that I don't feel comfortable answering, right? Because again, I am in cover status as well. I'm pretending to be someone else. I'm definitely not Lena Cisco, your elicitation trainer, and who is bumping you and testing you right now. So I have a whole story and background that I have that I live for this scenario. And if they ask a question that's just too specific, and I don't have an answer for, I'll flip it back around and ask a question to them. So they may say, well, where do you work? Do you work here in Boston? And if I don't want to answer that, which I would because it's benign enough, but I would simply say, well, what are you doing here? Why are you at this bar? Right. And so this way I use humor, I make it comfortable, but I'll just answer a question with a question. Now they may come back because these are highly trained people and say, why didn't you answer my question? And then I may come back and say, you didn't answer mine. And then I may laugh and say, okay, no, I don't work here. I'm actually here on a conference, which was typically my go-to cover story. So anyway, that's step number one. Follow their question with a question. Step number two. So now we're getting into, I've admitted I'm there for a conference. Well, what's my conference about? And why am I at a conference? What do I do to be attending this conference? So I share a little bit at a time. Now, I was a former archaeologist, so I usually will go with that cover. And I know that field very well. So I will say, oh, I'm at a conference that's discussing a dig or that's discussing new technology for radiocarbon dating or something. But I will definitely use those words that sound real fancy in the world of archaeology, just so you know, I know what I'm talking about. And then I'm more believable as well. So I give them the tip of the iceberg. Usually it's vague and very boring information, and they lose interest. And most people like to talk about themselves. So I now drive the conversation to you and what you do. And I show interest in you, your hobbies, your interests, your work, all of that stuff. So that's how I do that. And my exit strategy is I only had limited time per evening with these students to test it out. So I always had an exit strategy, which was my cell phone. And my cell phone, I would look at it and say, oh, I just got a text message from my friend. I was supposed to meet her here. She's changed the location. I got to run. But it was great talking to you and have fun at your conference or however we ended it. But that's it. You have to go in to any conversation with someone that you don't trust, especially, or just you don't know, with a plan. And you want to protect your information and you don't want to overshare and you definitely don't want to upset them. You don't want them to feel awkward around you. So you have to be prepared to know exactly what to say and do. Answer a question with a question, use the iceberg approach, keep it vague, keep it boring, and then have an exit strategy. And I promise you, you will save and protect your personal information from those who want it and don't need it.